Good afternoon and welcome to Cressive's data briefing on privacy compliance in 2025. Today, me and Ram will talk about the research findings of 12 months of automated compliance assessments that have been done through our tool, and we'll talk you through some of the most important trends and direction of privacy compliance. I'd like to welcome Ram. Hi, Ram.
Hi, Mustafa. Thanks for the introduction. Yes, we can walk through the findings of 2025.
Yeah, let's discuss around the methodology for the assessments that was adopted.
Sure. In terms of the methodology we use, is our tool is automated to look at the website, and first it detects the banner and then simulates the user flows, as in users were accepting the cookie banner and then proceeding through to accessing the content on the site, and also the reject flow, which means that the user declines and then cookies should not fire. We're testing for that. And as such, we are bound by the regional differences in terms of the framework, the EU, UK, and then we have the US, which is much more lenient than the European counterpart. And we also cater for regional specific frameworks like South Africa's POPIA. And the industries we catered for was across various pharmaceutical companies, telecommunications, FMCGs, and professional services, but are mainly focused on consumer-facing brands and digital assets. And the providers we looked at in terms of the banner CCM providers, OneTrust, user-centered, TrustTalk, and CookieS. These are the major players out there, but we have, based on the 12 months we have analyzed of all the digital websites we've seen, is that there are custom banners coming up. CMS providers have started making their own banners, which complicates the detection and the testing, but we have seen robust results in terms of the major patterns in which we detect, accept, and reject flows.
Excellent. Thank you, Ram, for walking us through the methodology and the dimensions of all the assessments that we've made. And there are actually lots of assessments that we made, and it's all automated with our tool. So the total number of assessments we did across the year was 8,500, which were done on 2,500 and some change unique websites. So for each website, we do a number of assessments. Some are set to a monthly frequency, some are ad hoc, and some websites which belong to our clients we monitor on more regular intervals. Now, when we get to the headline findings, the most important and critical finding, and probably doesn't reflect very well on the industry in general, is that 90% of websites are non-compliant based on its applicable regulatory framework. Ram, why don't you walk us through this secondary number, which is the banner fallacy, where we see that 59% of non-compliant sites actually have a cookie consent banner.
Yes, we touched upon this on the November month-end briefing, but yeah, overall of the year's insights, I think a lot of companies still do believe having a banner just ticks the box and they are compliant. But which is clearly not the case, because we have seen instances where having a banner is just a visual choice for the user, but it technically doesn't block the cookies or the trackers which are firing inherently without the user consent. So this is a serious breach of consent and privacy compliance in the eyes of the regulatory authorities. But the detection is another aspect, because you can slice the cake in different ways. But if you look at it in terms of cookies, a lot of sites may have been compliant, but privacy compliance doesn't stop with cookies. It goes on to network request, e-tags and beacons, and pixels, which are firing, without dropping a cookie. And also there has been, a lot of black hat methodology of using fingerprinting and monitoring your IP and trying to trace out where the user is from and customizing targeted ads. So these are all violations in terms of privacy compliance and shouldn't be allowed to fire unless the user has explicitly given consent.
Got it. And Let's walk through some of the common causes for non-compliance, Ram. We know 90% sites are not compliant, which again, like I said, is stark contrast to ICO's findings. But what are the common causes of non-compliance? Can you just perhaps you walk through some of them? I'll
Yes, so having a non-compliant banners is one of the major contributors to non-compliance. So having a banner which gives the user equal choice in terms equal and free choice to accept and decline for tracking, and also the ability for the user to make a change in the decision while accessing the content. So if let's say I land on a website and then I decide to accept for tracking, and then midway through the journey of interacting with the content I decide not to give my consent, I should be able to go and reject the data tracking, and from there on no tracking should happen. But it's easier said than done, but most of the solutions do offer this. It's about configuration and testing and validating the approach.
got it. And miscategorized cookies is something I think we touched upon last as well. This is something that is done at the CMP configuration where certain cookies, which could be marketing or analytics and therefore not essential for site functionality, could actually be marked or classified as functional. So this could be generally is a
Yeah.
genuine mistake as we covered. What about pre-consent tracking, Ram?
So in terms of the pre-consent tracking, a lot of these CMP banners are configured on a website where it does block the hard-coded elements, but it doesn't take into account like there are CMS injected elements and also analytic tags firing through tag manager scripts. So it needs to be looked at from a top-down approach, and then each of the element needs to be classified whether it's required or not, and then appropriate blocking mechanisms needs to be built in, and it should also read into the user consent. If let's say the user doesn't want to be tracked, it should respect it. And if the user hasn't given a consent choice, either accept or decline, when this is usually when the user lands on the website, and in that case the consent is still not given, so tracking should not happen.
Yeah, exactly. And that's almost the next point, right? The assumed consent point
Yes.
where, yeah, exactly. So that is sort of plays into pre-consent tracking as well. And I think we already covered the fact that probably the difference, we say 90% are non-compliant, and ICO seems to be indicating that the top 1,000 companies 90% of those are compliant. And we feel that probably the biggest difference between ICO's data and our data is that we are looking at network request violations in a very in-depth manner as well. That covers the common causes. Ram, you want to talk through some examples of non-compliant banners. So we'll show that on screen, some non-compliant banner examples, and Ram, you can please talk through it.
Sure. Yeah. So the we have seen examples of banners being configured on the website, but it's not configured in a way which is compliant, which needs to cater for the user to make a free choice, and it also doesn't assume consent. For example, the last one in the yellow, it says that this is a popular website in the UK, and I'm not going to name them, but if they are assuming that users landing on the website is consenting to traffic, and there is no way for you to accept or reject. It's mandatorily assumed that if you land on the website, you are being tracked and there's no way out of it. And this violates the principles of GDPR and e-privacy laws, which are there to protect the user's privacy. And yeah, as the example above that, it doesn't have a reject button. So that doesn't give the user a free choice from accepting and rejecting. It does when you go into manage settings, and there's a few additional clicks you have to do to reject things. That's one is bad UI. Two is not giving the user the free choice to make that decision on the first banner. And assumed and implied consent, when let's say a user lands on a website and doesn't make a choice on the banner and starts interacting with the content, that doesn't necessarily mean that the user has given you consent to track them. That needs to be respected. That decision has needs to be respected as if the consent was not given.
Got it. So anywhere where we see, especially in GDPR, RAM, I think we're saying anywhere we don't see a reject button, or we don't see the same ease of accepting versus rejecting, is a non-compliant case, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.